The Dolphins have decided that Tua is their long-term guy, and they recognize that it's going to cost them above $50 million. This is the team's approach to these negotiations going forward.
I absolutely love discussing quarterback contracts, primarily because they are so complicated. It's very difficult to determine whether or not a QB deserves to be paid $60 million a year annually. And in the case of Tua, things have really gotten off to a very rocky start. So before we get to the content, we are giving away copies of College Football 25. The game comes out in 2 weeks. We're running 2 giveaways on Instagram and Twitter. Both of the links are going to be in the description down below. Now that we get all that out of the way, Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Tua is one of the most unique quarterbacks in the entire NFL because during the 2019 NFL season, Miami Dolphins fans were literally starting tank for Tua campaigns, and then they were able to get Tua over Justin Herbert. Then Miami Dolphins fans were wondering, damn, did we really make a mistake wanting Tua? Because it seems like Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow might be better quarterbacks. Throughout the entire 2020 and 2021 season, Tua was consistently in rumors. There was a time where the Miami Dolphins were considering giving up multiple first-round picks and Tua to the Houston Texans for Deshaun Watson. And I'm not joking. We've made like 5 videos over the span of those years just in regards to that rumor alone. Could you just imagine if that went down? The Miami Dolphins would be in shambles right now. I mean, who knows? Maybe Deshaun Watson has a remarkable bounce-back season this year. Or maybe he's just content with the fact that he got max QB guaranteed money and he continues shitting the bed. We'll have to see. During the Brian Flores era, Tua wasn't really that great of a quarterback. He was definitely average, but he was far from the top QB in the NFL. To give you an idea, in his second season in the NFL, he completed 68% of his passes, threw 16 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. And then the Miami Dolphins shocked the world and decided to move on from Brian Flores, despite him actually making some progress as their head coach. In came Mike McDaniel, who instilled confidence into Tua and put him in probably the greatest possible situation any QB could be in. Not only did the Miami Dolphins already have Tua's buddy from Alabama and Jalen Waddle, but in the same offseason that they signed Mike McDaniel, they traded for Tyreek Hill, and that would make any quarterback's job exponentially easier. And as a result, Tua broke out. In year 3, he threw for over 3,500 passing yards, 25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, but he did deal with a lot of injury issues. I mean, some are very controversial, like this injury versus the Buffalo Bills where he clearly stumbled but he went back in anyway, the horrific hit he had on national TV versus the Cincinnati Bengals. There were questions of whether or not Tua should continue playing the game of football, and ultimately he decided to come back for year 4. And in year 4, Tua put together his best season to date, completing 69% of his passes, throwing for over 4,600 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. So you might be thinking, Mike, what's the problem? Especially if Tua is consistently improving year after year. Well, there becomes this whole debate. And this one debate is summed up by a simple question that a reporter asked Mike McDaniel last October.
There are some folks who believe that many quarterbacks in this scheme, with you as the coach, with Tyreek and Jalen, maybe even many quarterbacks would excel, would flourish, be near the top of the passer rater leading MVP candidate. What, if any, pushback is there relative to, wait, no, hold on. Tua is a little different.
I'm about to push this podium over. My answer to that would be, who the F cares? Because it is a team. We're working together, and I know one thing. I haven't seen people do what our guys do.
At the time, obviously, Mike McDaniel is going to say that Tua is our quarterback, and I don't want to even ask this question. But now that it's time for Tua to get a contract, it's a very legitimate question. Is Tua just a product of Mike McDaniel's system? Would Tua be this successful in any other NFL's offense? And it's very difficult to say this because I think this is way more complicated than just Mike McDaniel's incredible offense that features excellent rushing and has revitalized rise of the career of Raheem Mostert, has made a fantasy superstar out of Devon Achane whenever he's healthy, and is known for its speed at the skill positions on offense. And the reason why this is such an important question to ask is because it's not like the Miami Dolphins are consistently in the conversation to win the Super Bowl. They had very similar fates in the first 2 seasons under Mike McDaniel. In the 2022 season, the Miami Dolphins went 9-8. They made it to the wild card, and they would lose to the Buffalo Bills with a backup QB because Tua was injured. They would lose by 3, which was pretty impressive, but at the same time, I guess it kind of reopens the conversation about the viability of Tua. But of course, you can make a compelling argument. Look, Mike, the Miami Dolphins didn't have their starting quarterback that year, so if the Miami Dolphins can protect Tua, then it's not that crazy to think that they can potentially make a run to the Super Bowl. The Dolphins were very aggressive that offseason. They parted ways with their defensive coordinator, Josh Boyer. They brought in Vic Fangio, who's considered to be a defensive genius. They traded for Jalen Ramsey, paired Jalen Ramsey with Xavier Howard. That was supposed to be an exciting duo, and ultimately they improved marginally, going 11-6, making it to the wild card and losing to the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 more wins, but a similar result. So now you have to look at this team and also consider that the AFC East is very competitive. I know we always laugh at the New York Jets because, well, Aaron Rodgers does some pretty interesting activities in the offseason, but you're in a division with an Aaron Rodgers-led team that improved significantly over the offseason, and the Buffalo Bills, who are the most dominant team in this division, and the New England Patriots, who are clearly rebuilding. So you're not really in a situation to waste dollar bills here, especially if you need to consistently improve each and every year, especially if Tyreek Hill is looking at the wide receiver market and is having his agent say this.
Fluid line of communication with them, and I've shared with them how Tyreek feels, and reiterate that Tyreek has said that he would love to finish his career here with the Dolphins. So the Dolphins know how we feel.
Now, the Miami Dolphins made some pretty good moves over this past offseason. I mean, they added Calais Campbell on a proven contract. They also added Jordan Brooks to replace Jerome Baker. They added Kendall Fuller. They also added Odell Beckham Jr., Jonnu Smith, and Aaron Brewer on the offense. They drafted Chop Robinson and Patrick Paul. This is a team that is making really good moves, but then there's one question. What do you do with Tua? And this is not an easy question to answer at all, because in the very beginning, their general manager came out and said that they were interested in extending Tua, but they waited a little too long. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars, kudos to them. We made a whole video on this, but they extended Trevor Lawrence a whole 2 seasons early and decided to pay him the highest paid contract in the entire NFL. Why? Because in 2 years' time, that's probably going to look like a good contract. So now you have 2 players making Joe Burrow type money. You have Jared Goff that got extended recently, and then you have the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott, the Miami Dolphins with Tua, and of course the San Francisco 49ers with Brock Purdy. So the question is, how much do you pay Tua? And that's where things get really interesting, because the tradition in quarterback markets is to just continue to make your quarterback the highest paid QB in the NFL. But does Tua really deserve to get paid more than Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, and Trevor Lawrence / Joe Burrow? Well, that's where things get interesting. According to Jeff Darlington, he says that Tua admitted this spring that he's growing impatient over contract negotiations with the Miami Dolphins. One reason for the holdup on a potential long-term deal is because the Dolphins have yet to offer the Pro Bowl quarterback a deal comparable to the extensions recently signed by the Detroit Lions' Jared Goff and the Jacksonville Jaguars' Trevor Lawrence. Jeff Darlington even said on NFL Live, "This is complicated. I'm not saying that it won't get done, but right now there's 5 words that are looming over this contract negotiations, and they're the words that came out of Tua's mouth. The market is the market. Right now, the Dolphins are not offering the contract that is the market value based on those other deals that were done. We're not to panic point just yet, but the Dolphins are not in the Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence ballpark." So to give you an idea, Jared Goff signed a contract that is going to be averaging $53 million per year. Trevor Lawrence is the highest paid QB in the NFL, but that contract doesn't kick in for another 2 years. And this is where it gets very complicated, because the market is just going to keep on inflating. Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy are also owed huge contracts. And then there's this question of, can you just get another quarterback to do Tua's job? I don't mean to be disrespectful, and I don't mean to be crazy, because I think Tua was absolutely prolific last year. But how much of this is Tua and how much of of it is Mike McDaniel's offense and the fact that he has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You don't win Super Bowls by overpaying players that don't deserve that type of money. And in this particular case, don't be surprised if the Miami Dolphins do something unprecedented. I mean, obviously Tua has to play out the remainder of his contract, and I don't think the Dolphins would do this because, again, no team has ever done this, but you could simply just have Tua play on his contract year, then move on from him, and then draft a new QB on a rookie scale contract and invest that capital elsewhere. And until a team decides to do something like this, you're just gonna see the market for QBs go up higher and higher and higher. But personally, in my opinion, if you decide to pay Tua as the highest paid QB in the entire NFL, I don't think the Dolphins will win a Super Bowl. It's not crazy to assume this because if you pay Tua that type of money, then your team is going to get significantly weaker. You're gonna have to make cuts somewhere, and that's where things get very complicated. So let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Dolphins fan, how much should Tua get paid? If you want to see our video on the Trevor Lawrence contract and why I think it's genius, despite it being the highest paid QB contract in the NFL, I'll leave a link to that in the end screen. If you prefer to watch me discuss why my Dallas Cowboys are doomed, I'll leave that also in the end screen. I'll meet you guys over there, and aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.